Alright, so if you've been watching my videos and my live streams for a while, you might realize that I have a bit of a high opinion regarding NICO Robin, which makes it a little difficult to do a discussion video without going on and on or, tirade about how she's so great, my own personal bias. So I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible, but probably not going to be as critical of her if I've ever been that critical of other Straw Hats. She's actually not my favorite Straw Hat, though. That honor goes to Frankie, and we'll get to him when we get to him. But for right now, we're talking about Robin, who is probably very easily my favorite female character in One Piece, but we're just going to keep it with the same we always did with the Straw Hat discussions. So let's just start off, I guess, with her position on the crew in that regard. And I'm bringing this up first because this is something that has always a little bit bugged me about the way that Luffy runs his ship. And that is that Robin is, in fact, the archaeologist on the crew. That's like her official title if you're going to give her one. So whenever the crew is going to a new island, they're running around, fighting, the main villain of that island or whatever, Robin will be the person going around and actually studying the history of the island or the poneglyphs or hey, there's this ancient book that you can go and check it out, and she'll actually read up on this stuff and understand, like, what's actually going on behind the scenes. Like, when the group went to Skypiea, Luffy and Zoro, they were all busy, like, let's fight priests and let's take out God and shit like that, just having an adventure on the sky. Meanwhile, Robin was walking around the ruins, actually trying to figure out, what the fuck happened here, unraveling the mystery of Shandora and the whole thing with the City of Gold and everything like that. But the thing that always annoyed me is that, really, in a perfect world, Luffy should defer to Robin for pretty much everything, because she has the knowledge of not just, not just to manipulate people and get people to do her own, what she wants and how to infiltrate, because she has that type of knowledge, but she also understands really about the world better than any of the other Straw Hats. She understands current events, she keeps up to date on these situations, she spent 2 years with the revolutionary fucking army. If it's like Luffy's gonna pick a fight with this really dangerous enemy, Robin would be like, okay, I'll be able to tell you stuff about him and maybe why you shouldn't fight him because he's this dangerous. Now, that would never happen because that's not how the story is set up. That's not how Luffy operates, But I'm just saying, if there was adding a touch of realism to this and Luffy was really concerned about, oh, maybe I'm picking a fight with the wrong people, really should defer to Robin on that. Now, Nami is very intelligent too, but Robin is kind of in a whole other class. She was spending her entire life pretty much learning how to infiltrate certain organizations, to get her way, to, further her own motives and trying to stay alive. So, whereas Nami has a little bit of skills in manipulation, Robin's kind of an expert at that. Also, a little side note is she's the only person on the Straw Hat crew that Luffy did not actually ask to join. We never had a moment where it was like, hey, Robin, join my crew. No, it was after the events of Alabasta, Robin just stowed away on the Going Merry, and then she's just, like, sitting there like, I have nowhere else to go because of you, Luffy, so I guess I'm just joining your crew. And Luffy's just like, yeah, I see your predicament. Okay, you can join. That was pretty much it. So, yeah, I think that's maybe one of the reasons I like her so much, is just because she's such a cool, level-headed character. She's not, like, ridiculously over the top in, like, that anime kind of fashion. Not to say that she doesn't have her own comedic moments. She has this sort of dark humor about her that makes it very funny in her own right. And whenever she does say something rather funny, it's kind of taken aback because it's like, whoa, I didn't expect that coming out of Robin's mouth. So it's even more funny when stuff like that happens. But yeah, she's more cool, she's calm, she's level-headed in situations. Alright, so now let's move on to her backstory. No, we're not doing that in this video. We spent 12 minutes last time discussing Nami's breasts. It was relevant, mind you, but can we not have a discussion about an attractive female character in anime without it resulting in the person talking about them being like, they have big boobies, they're really hot. She is a very eloquent woman, and I will not let this video be derailed into provocativity. Okay. So Robin never knew who her father was, period. Her mother left her at the age of 2 to go and travel the world and discover the history of the Void Century, Robin not even remembering what her mother's face looked like. At the tender age of 8, she had essentially no friends. Every child her age on the island threw rocks at her because of her devil fruit ability, calling her the Devil Child. She was in the care of her aunt and her maternal uncle, who basically treated her like a slave, a la Cinderella, forcing her to do the dishes and all the laundry and barely giving her any food, with her devil fruit power even piling on more chores for her. Her only saving grace in the entire freaking island was a group of archaeologists that treated her very kindly. However, they were all destroyed, completely burned alive, and the entire island incinerated by the world government after they found out they were trying to research the Void Century. One of her only friends that she ever made, Dragonball D. Sol, was then frozen alive by Aokiji because he decided to go against the world government for said reasons. But hey, at least she was reunited with her mother, who was then killed 5 minutes later, forcing Robin to flee the island and live her entire life basically in hiding, being sold out by every single solitary person she ran across, and bringing death and destruction and despair wherever she fucking went, until finally she was almost killed by Crocodile, given up on life, and about ready to commit suicide when Luffy decided to save her ass and join the crew, the one time in her life that she ever had real friends. Yeah. But no, she has a nice ass and she has huge tits, so let's focus on that, right? Okay, you could do whatever you want. I'm not here to be up on a high horse. I've jerked off to Robin just as much as you have, so don't worry about it, guys. Although I will say, however tragic that backstory may be, and this is a critical point of contention for a lot of One Piece fans that I've seen, who has the most depressing backstory out of all of the Straw Hats, and it pretty much gets narrowed down to 2 characters, Robin or Brook. Now, even though I just went on that tirade about how depressing Robin's backstory is, I'm still gonna say Brooks is way more depressing for not just for the fact of time, for one. The fact that, Robin's suffering lasted about 20 years, Brooks lasted 50, and, hell, at least Robin had her skin for that 20 years, and she could move around and actually see the world. I mean, it was limited into who she could, ally with and really talk to and really spill her deepest, most desires to, is pretty much nobody. But Brook was, he died, and then he was stuck as a living corpse on a boat floating in the middle of a dense fog that he could never escape, with the rotting remains of all of his crewmates on board for 50 years. So I think that's a little bit more depressing, but Robin's is a good solid number 2. Although I will probably say that Robin's backstory could be the most tragic when it actually comes to the way that the One Piece world really is, the way that it's set up with the world government and everything. How the world government is this, vast sort of fascist entity that will initiate laws, and anybody that would dare to go against those laws, they don't just get a slap on the wrist, they don't just get thrown in jail, no, they get thrown the fucking book. The book in this case being 5 Navy battleships that just nuke the entire island. They don't care. It's like an infection with them. Anybody on an island that's going against the government's, laws, we have to assume that everybody there is somewhat at fault, and we just need to nuke the entire island with a buster call. Everything burns, no one survives. And in this case, it's just learning history. And that's the tragedy of Robin's backstory, and it's really been stated the most by Professor Clover, the one that basically taught Robin all she had to know about history and archaeology, and the one that presented her with the medal, like, you are now a scholar, which, it's kind of sad, like, everything in Robin's life is essentially shitty, and then right around the time it starts to get a little better, where she meets Jaguar D. Sol, and she has a friend in him, and she becomes an official scholar from all the archaeologists, recognizing her talents, and her mom's coming back home. Right when you think things are turning around, it just goes right back down, shoots all-time low, and just, ruins her entire life, makes it even more shitty than it already was. And like I said, she was essentially a slave to her maternal uncle and her step-aunt, I guess a godmother, I guess you want to call her. Anyway, yeah, so it wasn't that great to begin with, but it got even worse, and made worse by the fact that the only reason this is all going on is because the world government is trying to maintain its own level level of power in the world. And the world government knows that anybody trying to discover the history of the Void Century or about that ancient kingdom, they know that there's a piece of information there that ever was discovered and leaked to the world that's being guarded by the poneglyphs, that could actually jeopardize the level of control and power that the world government has. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the Catholic Church through a lot of the Middle Ages, how they had this level of power, and anybody that would come forward to try to, question or jeopardize that power, they were, thrown in a jail cell away from the other people, or they were just fucking executed. It's power. That's all it is at the end of the day. People have power and they want to stay in power, and they're going to try anything in their means to try to suppress anything that could jeopardize that power. The world government just going a little bit further with the Buster Calls and their military might that they have at their disposal. But then you have Jaguar D. Saul that's even trying to go against it, that realizes that, just blindly following the will of the government is kind of stupid, and he's immediately killed by Aokiji. So, yeah, basically, that's the reason why Robin lost her homeland and every single person that she cared about. Basically, just because of a totalitarian government, essentially. Am I using the word totalitarian right? Yeah, I think I am, probably. The point is, the government's pretty fucked up in the One Piece world, and I should probably do a whole video just about that. But enough of that depressing stuff. Let's talk about Robin's relationship with the other Straw Hats. Now, like I said, this segment is going to get shorter and shorter the more videos I do on the Straw Hats, so as not to repeat myself. So, for instance, we already talked about Usopp and Zoro and Brooks and Nami's relationship to Robin. So, with that being said, let's just start with Luffy. So, as I said, Luffy should really listen to Robin a lot more, considering all the knowledge he has about history and the current events that are going on in the world. You'd also think Luffy would have a word or two to say to Robin about, hey, you were with the revolutionaries, so you met my dad? I mean, Luffy's not that interested in Dragon, but it would still be an interesting conversation to have, although Dragon probably told Robin not to tell Luffy about anything involving him. I would assume that's probably the case there, or just, like I said, Luffy doesn't give a shit, maybe Dragon doesn't give a shit. But in terms of that, you have that moment in Alabasta, probably the biggest moment there with Luffy and Robin specifically, when Robin is in the crypt, she's about to die, essentially, she's ready for everything to just end. She's been running from the government for 20 years. She's been trying to discover the history of the poneglyphs left behind by her mother, NICO Ovia, who was also killed in the Buster Call. She was also, and they had this one tearful reunion before they got split apart, and Ovia ended up dying. She dedicated her life to try to discover the Rio poneglyphs, so Robin wanted to as well, but she was living her whole life on the run, and every single a crew or organization that she became part of eventually led to ruin, as with Baroque Works with Crocodile. So she's lying there in the crypt. She got, stabbed or cut by Crocodile. She's just ready to fucking die. But Luffy decides, nope, that's stupid, and just picks her up and then takes her out of the freaking crypt. And I think at that moment Robin remembered Jaguar D. Saul, and then she had that moment where she's like, always the people with the D, in their name, are always doing these things, always coming into her life. So she decides to follow Luffy around. I won't lie to you, I think when she first decided to join up with the Straw Hats, though, just because of all the shit she's been through in her life, she probably was thinking about more of just using them or manipulating them rather than actually becoming a member of the crew. It was more just like, instead of just giving up and wanting to die, she at least got back to the point where it's just like, all right, if I'm still alive, I guess I'll keep going. So I'll do what I've always done. I'm going to, go into this crew, pretend to be their friend, pretend to get along with them for my own devices to try to discover and study the world. Not really malicious intent. She didn't plan on, killing the crew or anything like that. This is what she's been doing for 20 years in order to survive. So why would this time be any different? I mean, yeah, Luffy might have saved her, but from Robin's perspective, other than Luffy being very similar to Jaguar D. Saul, she probably just viewed him as this very naive boy that wouldn't get very far in his goal to try to become the king of the pirates. But then again, he managed to stand up to Crocodile and managed to survive that, managed to have a very strong will. Yeah, so during her first time on the crew, though, before she really got to be, connected with them after the events of the Enies Lobby arc, she was really kind of distant. She didn't refer to the crew members by their names, rather than, like she would refer to Usopp as, Long Nose Coon or something like that, or Sanji as just Cook. She wouldn't actually refer to them by name. Although, in Luffy's case, Robin tends to just call him by his name, although I think a few times she does call him as Captain. So next up would be Sanji. Yeah, Sanji. So, obviously, Sanji is very smitten by Robin. Did not take very long for Sanji to trust her as a member of the crew after she basically just declared herself a member of the crew. Sanji was like, oh yes, another hot young lady to be on the pirate crew. I'm not going to object. Although Sanji does tend to treat Robin a little bit different than Nami. When they're on the ship, it's essentially the same. You know, Sanji's always flirting with Nami and Robin. It will make them like the finest desserts and then be like, Robin, I made you this, I don't know, this amazing cake to show my love and admiration for your beauty or something. And whereas Nami might get annoyed by that kind of stuff constantly, Robin is just like, oh, thank you, Sanji-san, or Sanji-kun or whatever, and then just eat her cake and giggle a little bit or whatever. So she's a little bit more indifferent or more accepting of it, whereas Nami has a little bit more of an emotional reaction there. Sanji understands, though, that Robin's been in a lot more fights. She's way more capable. She has a devil fruit power, so in terms of combat, you know, Sanji doesn't have to be extremely protective of her, but even so, whenever she does get injured, Sanji will have the same exact reaction as whenever someone injures Nami, as Sanji being a very chivalrous young man, so if Robin got injured, like when Gecko Moria stole her shadow or something like that, he'll get just as pissed off as if someone injured Nami. It's just the kind of guy he is there. Yeah, after she defected and went with CP9, Sanji was like the first person, like her knight in shining armor jumped on the sea train pretty much immediately, even though that's a little bit of a suicide mission because there's so many strong people on this train, including like Rob Lucci and Kaku and all the other members of CP9 and all the other CPs and government officials. Sanji immediately like just walks out, lights up a cigarette, realizes none of the other crew are going to get there in time, and if they're going to try to save Robin, they're going to have to do it now. And he just jumps on the train to go and try to rescue them. Of course, Frankie and Usopp were on the train as well, but I don't think that Sanji knew that at the moment. I think he thought he was just going in alone to really just show how much he really cares about her and wants to get her back at all costs, even if it's like risking his own life there. So that's, of course, very, very indicative of Sanji's personality. Next would be Chopper. So, like a lot of the other characters, Chopper is viewed as very, very cute in Robin's eyes and tends to hang out with him a lot. I don't know if there's ever been a scene where Robin and Chopper have like taken a bath together like Nami and Chopper have. Probably. She has the same regard for him as Nami pretty much. The funniest scene with Chopper, I would say, is whenever Frankie switched bodies with Chopper and Robin was like horrified to the point of just like, do not ever speak when you are in Chopper's body. Just stop talking. Just stop making faces. You're ruining his cuteness. Damn you, Frankie. So that was pretty funny there. Like she was like getting ready to just like slap Frankie if he kept on acting his normal hentai self inside of Chopper's body. So that was pretty cute there. Aside from that, I'm trying to think of any other really big moments between Chopper and Robin. You'd think there would be a few more. They both love to read, for one. There was actually a really cute anime-only episode that I remembered about this. It was right after the Alabasta arc where the Straw Hats land on this island to gather fruit, and so they leave Robin and Chopper on the ship to just watch after it, and so Chopper takes this time to make more rumble balls, and you have this moment where Robin and him are just kind of like, this is really fucking awkward. You were trying to kill us like last week, and now you're just sipping coffee on our front deck. What's going on? But that's a very kind of cute sort of moment, you know, between them where they get to know each other and they talk about their past and everything. I actually really want to go watch that episode now because that's one of my favorite anime-only episodes there. I should going back to Sanji just a little bit. There was a moment that was anime-only, and it was during the events of Thriller Bark. This is probably one of the funniest moments Robin's ever been and really shows her personality. See, after the events of Ennie's Lobby, after the Straw Hats go through such lengths to rescue her and everything like that, you know, she starts to warm up to them a little more and starts to have fun with them and their wacky antics, but there's a limit to how much she can handle, okay? She's not against having fun because these are the people that are her family and that fought for her and that she can kind of be herself with. She doesn't have to worry about them backstabbing her or anything, and they're strong so they can protect her and everything like that from the world government, so she's fine with being with them. But then you have moments during Thriller Bark when Frankie was breaking out the Tactics 15 giant pirate warrior, where it was like Frankie becomes like using the Straw Hats as like different pieces. They form, Mugiwara Voltron shit. So it's Zoro and Sanji being the legs, and then Frankie being the torso, Usopp being one of the arms, Chopper being the head, and the other arm is supposed to be Robin. And they form this giant mecha pirate warrior, which is just like all of them. Like it's nothing really that impressive. It just kind of looks cool. It probably doesn't have a lot of applications in battle. And you have this really funny moment where they're like, "Come on, Robin, dock with Frankie. You have to be the left arm." And Robin's just like completely deadpan, like, "No. Never ask me to dock with you again." And there's a moment that I think it was only added in the anime, where Sanji was one of the Sanji was the left leg, and Robin would have been the left arm. So Sanji would have had like a bird's eye view at Robin's, special area, and he realizes this, and Robin realizes it as well, and just shoots him this death glare that could like incinerate fucking titanium at a glance, So that was pretty funny there. A good comedic moment there that Robin has. Like, she has a very, very dark sense of humor. She would be totally a fan of like 1980s slasher movies, I think. Like, she's the first person to ever bring up like, yeah, they probably got eaten by sharks and are dead now. That's like the first person she comes up with. But yeah, so she has those moments there. Rather dark sense of humor. After Chopper is, it's her, but then it's Frankie, so I guess it would be Frankie who was the last one to talk about. So, I've already mentioned this, but out of all the Straw Hats, Frankie is probably the one that is like the exact polar opposite of Robin's personality. So, that's the person that, she can tolerate him for the most part, but whenever he gets a little bit too crazy and ridiculous and in his very perverted fashion, Robin really can't be around him. She has trust in him and has faith in him with his abilities, and probably really respects him as a shipwright and as an engineer and everything. But whenever he's doing something crazy, like taking off his clothes and like, "Ow, yeah, let's dance," Robin's just like, shuts her book and like, "Okay, I can't. I just can't. I'm sorry." Just polar opposites personality. Can't deal with that. But they get along rather well. There's not really a lot of interactions between them. Probably the most notable one is that time that Robin squeezed Frankie's nuts. Which was Robin felt up Frankie's balls. Yeah, Robin doesn't have any of his shit. That's the one thing where it's like, you're joining the crew, get on the ship. We don't have time for this shit. We need to get moving. And then just, yeah. So even if they're on the same crew, guys, you'll understand this, okay? You'll understand this better than, girls, you might be able, no. Guys will understand this. You can never truly forgive somebody for squeezing your fucking family jewels. It doesn't matter if it's your spouse or a loved one or the person that saved your life, like literally dived in front of a car, saved your life, and got in a horrible accident that took months for them to heal. Even with that being the case, you cannot truly forgive somebody for straight up grabbing your nuts and just fucking stress balling the fuck out of them. So there's a little bit of friction between Frankie and Robin that will just never go away. But they're not really on camera together all that much, so I don't think that's really going to matter. But let's just keep that in mind there, okay? There's like a code, alright? So, with that being said, let's talk about Robin's Devil Fruit ability, shall we? Yes, it is the Hana Hana no Mi, the Flower Fruit, which you'd think having that ability would be like summoning flowers and manipulating nature or something like that. No, it gives her the ability to sprout her body parts like flowers. Mostly, in fact, for the vast majority of whenever she fights, she'll multiply her arms only. Although she can replicate any other part of her body, which is very handy for reconnaissance. For instance, replicating her eyes, so she can literally be a fly on the wall or an eye on the wall. Her ears, which she can use to listen in on conversations, she can also sprout her legs that she can use to carry her fallen, comrades. Like after Zoro got, like electrocuted by Eneru, she can use her, like she can extend her feet out of Zoro's own body. So she can extend these things to not only inanimate objects, but also sprout her limbs on organic life as well. She also did this with Luffy. You'd think this ability could be a little bit more useful, actually, to sprout other types of body parts rather than just her arms. But like I said, she mostly uses her arms in battle. What she'll normally do, which is very kind of like, cringy, is she'll actually summon her arms on the opponent's like shoulders or something, and then she'll have them grab their heads like this and just snap their fucking neck. And it's like cringy every time I see it. This book fell. Because those people are kind of dead at that point, just suffering a serious fucking spinal neck injury. Other techniques that she utilizes are slapping the opponent or, summoning her arms, to, like, restrain them in a certain way so they can't move. The way that Robin initially talked about this power to Pell was that speed and power mean nothing to me with this fruit. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's pretty badass. Of course, it doesn't take very long in the story to realize that speed and power are kind of a big deal. I would like to see Robin hold down Kaido with her ability. Let's see if speed and power mean anything there. Let's see if you can hold down fucking Jack there, Robin. Let's see if you got that going on. I highly doubt you can manage that. In fact, power does mean something, because when she was trying to restrain Zoro's general zombie on Thriller Bark, I forget what his name was, the zombie with the Hitler mustache, she tried to restrain him so that Chopper can put the salt in the zombie's mouth, and the zombie was so physically strong he was actually to resist Robin and break away her arms. See, the problem is that whereas Robin could get the advantage, like locking the limbs in an awkward position and, keeping them in a certain, hold, they're still her arms, they're still limited to her level of physical strength, and every single arm or body part that she summons, she can feel the strain on each one. So yeah, she can summon like a bunch of hands to try to restrain an opponent, but she literally feels the strain on each one. So she has like her arms in this sort of cross position to kind of keep them like focused. Like she has like a certain zen she enters. She's had this devil fruit since before she was 8 years old, so she's had a lot of time to practice it and really get the most out of it. Although I don't know if it's awakened yet. That's anybody's guess. Later on, after the time skip, she can use this ability to summon so many arms that she can combine them together into giant hands that she could use for a various amount of techniques. Before the time skip, her limit seemed to be 100 that she could summon. Her Cien Fleu, she names all her techniques after, in French, because fleu, of course, means flower. So she could summon her, wings, like 100 arms, 50 on each side, which allows her to fly very, very briefly, or she could summon the big tree that she used against ores, these really large-scale techniques. And then after the time skip, she can use 1,000 arms at once, combining them together to make Giantos o Mano, these giant hands that she used to, push the Sunny away from a giant rock, or having giant feet to stomp on the enemy, and also probably going to make a foot fetish this day. And yes, by the way, in case you were wondering that it could go kinky, yeah, Oda said that it can. She can sprout her tits, she could sprout her ass, she could sprout any part of her body. Any one. So you could think of all the very kinky, bedroom things she can do with that. Her devil fruit, though, like I said, it's one of those things that's kind of broken at first or really OP and then has to be nerfed big time later on in the story so that she's not super, super powerful. Although it does come in handy quite a bit, like whenever they were on Jaya and they needed to get this south bird that kept flying away from them and kept torturing them. But Robin basically said, as long as I can see it, I can capture it. Essentially, that means that as long as it's in with my range, then I could capture it. There's other useful applications for it, like on Dressrosa, when she had to get on top of this cliff. So she extended her legs out of the cliff like they were stairs, and she stepped on like 3 or 4 of them at a time, making the ones before disappear and then reappear, like having a foothold to keep getting to the top there. And actually, that was a cool moment because Cavendish, or rather Hakuba, tried to attack her there, and that was a really badass moment because we all thought that Hakuba was this really badass swordsman that was like on Zoro's level that was just gonna slice down fucking Robin, and Bartolomeo is freaking out like, don't hurt Robin, senpai, and like, oh shit, Robin's gonna get cut, and then Robin just looks at Cavendish, looks at Hakuba, and then just kind of extends her arms out of the cliff, grabs him, and just the same that she did with Pell, and then holds him in a lock, and just no fucks given from Robin. So that was pretty neat. There was even a technique that she used against Diamante that I still don't understand how that fucking worked. This book keeps falling down. Yeah, you fall down again, you're going to be asking for it. Book. Alright, but there's this moment when they're fighting against Diamante, and she uses this Moth Orchid ability. So she summons a bunch, just her hands, not her arms, just her hands, to summon this kind of like butterfly effect thing, and it just floats in the air, and I really don't know what the purpose of that technique was other than just it kind of looked cool. Later on in that fight, she tries to defend Rebecca against Diamante's power to summon a bunch of these spiked balls that are like falling upon the earth. So she grabs all these sunflowers and basically makes an umbrella using her hands, but a few of them manage to break through and injure Robin severely. She got a few on the back, and she's bleeding rather bad, but she kind of keeps a happy face for Rebecca, like, yeah, go be with your dad after the battle's over and Diamante is defeated, and meanwhile she's injured rather well. So she has a rather high tolerance for pain, I'd say, catching a few spiked balls in the back, so damn. However, her most useful ability is one that we don't really know that much about yet, and that's her ability to straight up clone herself after the time skip. That's making her whole body duplicated. So we don't know if it's like she creates another version of herself with a fully functioning brain that can act independently, or if it's like a puppet that she's manipulating. I would assume it's like Naruto's Kagebushi no Jutsu, being able to completely summon another version of yourself that just, acts the way that you would want to act because they're, well, you. Also by sparking a shit ton of different Yuri fanfics, that's a thing. But yeah, she's only used this technique in battle to like grapple characters and to deliver messages and stuff like that. But I feel like there should be an extra drawback to using this ability because she doesn't use it all that much. Or perhaps any injuries that the clone gets means they would be carried over to Robin as well. So limiting this ability in a straight-on battle with a really strong opponent would just increase your chances of getting hit rather than really help you in combat. Only use it when you know that you could take on your opponent. I didn't go that much into detail on like an arc by arc thing in this video, and the reason for that is a lot of people have stated like, we've already seen a lot of the story, Matt. We already understand the story itself, so let's not try to do too much of like a recap, like every single event she's been in, rather than a discussion about the character. So that's why this episode might seem a little bit shorter than the others here. But essentially, Robin for right now hasn't really had that many fights in the story. That's kind of depressing. I really wish she would get to fight a little bit more. Let's just check after the time skip. She was mostly an underling dispatcher when they were on Fishman Island, taking out a large amount of the new Fishman pirates there by basically stepping on them. There was a pretty badass moment where they summoned Frankie summons the battle Frankie, the Iron Pirate Frankie Shogun, and like she just has her shades down, like, oh my god, I am not pleased, but man, that looks awesome. After the battle, she's like, did we even need that robot? I mean, we were doing fine without it. And Frankie's like, of course we needed the robot. On Punk Hazard, she doesn't really have a battle with really anybody. I think she fights against a few of the Centaurs, a few of Caesar Clown's minions there. Nothing really much to talk about. During Dressrosa, she had her moment with Rebecca. Oh, she got turned into a toy. She got turned into a Raggedy Ann doll when they were infiltrating the underground port. Then you have, it's like the anime can't go very far without fan service. It's like, so Dressrosa is an arc where Nami's not in it for the most part. She leaves near the beginning of it, and so it's like, well, we still need fan service, so they made Viola's tits way bigger, and since Robin's like the only female Straw Hat that stuck around, they sexualized the crap out of her. Go watch the episode where Robin transforms back from a toy into a human, and it's like extremely like boom, there's her ass, boom, there's her tits. It's fucking overkill. And then there's Rebecca, which is a whole other, I mean, look at this shit, man. They really went crazy with that. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, okay, her personality is so freaking random, So she's a very stoic, very calm character on the surface, as I stated. She has a rather childish imagination, though. Like, whenever one of the Straw Hats will bring something up, like when they're going to Dressrosa, and Luffy said Dressroba, which means like an old woman wearing a dress. Robin has this like these little like thought bubbles will just like pop up out of nowhere, with Robin having these very like childlike drawing, imaginative, depictions of the things that she's thinking about, but she keeps a very calm expression, so she'll just like pop, 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 and then like this image of a old lady wearing a dress will show up. And whenever they're talking about Kuma's devil fruit, the paw fruit, she imagined like a little kitten having paws. It's just weird shit that happens because it's like she's such a serious character, and whenever this weird thing she's thinking of shows up, it just makes me laugh every time that happens. I feel like I didn't talk about Eni's lobby all that much because that was probably the biggest moment for her character in the story. So I feel like if I don't talk about that, then that's not really much of a Robin discussion, you know what I mean? But I didn't want to go into every single arc into great detail. So, and oh, by the way, I never mentioned Davy Backfight in these videos, and that's because I still haven't read it. I don't like Davy Backfight. But anyway, okay. So, during the events of Water 7, after she meets Aokiji, and after she gets frozen by him, and she realizes what's coming, when Blue Ino confronts her in Water 7, she essentially just goes with him. Doesn't try to fight, doesn't try to, resist them, doesn't go to the other Straw Hats and ask for help on what they could do. She just leaves with Blue Ino because she realizes that the government finally caught up with her, and that sticking around with the Straw Hats will just mean that they're going to end up dead, and she cares about them at least a little bit more than she cared about like Crocodile and Baroque Works. So she follows them, tries to kill Iceberg, pretty much does whatever that they ask her to do. Once in a very badass moment where she pulls out all these rifles using her powers. So you think weapons would be very handy for Robin, considering that she can hold more than just, 2 hands full. So that's something that you could do maybe more with her character, Oda. Robin having a bunch of pistols to whip out or attack the opponent with or something. And it takes her a long time to admit that she needs help. Out of all the other, like, even with Nami, that, Nami resists the Straw Hats' help at first on Arlong Park, but Robin resists it the most. She resists it on Water 7, she resists it when they're on the train trying to rescue her, even up to when she's being carted off to the Tower of Law and all the Straw Hats are standing there on the courthouse roof trying to, like, saying, we're gonna rescue you. She's still just like, no, just please go away. Don't you understand? This is bigger than just some random, pirate taking me hostage. This is the world government here. This is the entire Marines we're talking about here. This is all the Cypherpole agents. If you try to get me back, you will be killed in so many different ways. There's no way you can try to help me here. It's literally the entire world versus the 6 of you. And so she doesn't understand, though, what the Straw Hats really represent in that situation. She doesn't understand that Luffy kind of already made the entire world his enemy when he declared to be king of the pirates. Luffy understands what that means. He understands what it means trying to become king of the pirates, trying to find the One Piece, trying to be like Gold Roger. You're making an enemy out of the world government just by default with those aspirations. So, to Luffy's perspective, this doesn't even mean anything. Like, Robin, I don't care about anything like that. I don't care about who my enemy is. I've already come to terms with that. You tell me if you want to live, and then we save you. And it's that simple. And then after the flashback and everything, Robin comes to terms like, maybe I can wish for something. And that's a heartbreaking moment there. Just because you understand the implications of that. She's been on the run for 20 years from the world government. Even before that, she was essentially this slave to her aunt and uncle that were just, be quiet, just, be seen and not heard kind of mentality. She's had rather a shitty life, and she's never really had a moment where she can be like, I want this, or can I just have this? That's not how she was, that's just not how the world was to her. It wasn't that kind to her. But at this moment, after they burn down the flag, and they realize that they really are trying to rescue her out of good faith of her being their friend and just make an enemy of the government, Robin's like, oh my god, can I actually wish for this? And then she realizes it, and she breaks down in tears, and she cries out, I want to live. I want to live. And Luffy's like, okay, that's all we need to hear. Be there in a few hours, just sit tight. And there you go. That's how it's handled. And after that, like I said, Robin tends to, warm up to the crew there and understand that she really does have friends. And this is reaffirmed later on during Zoe, when they're talking about the road poneglyphs on in the whale forest, in the tree, and Inurashi brings up, like, Robin, you understand you can read these poneglyphs, so you are one of the few people that can. You're going to be sought at so much. So Inurashi, not being aware of Robin, not being aware of all the shit that went through in Annie's lobby, Robin isn't even concerned about it anymore. She's not worried about anybody trying to kill her. She's not worried about anybody trying to steal her knowledge or anything like that. She is completely confident that Luffy and the Straw Hats can protect her. So she kind of just jokes about it. She just kind of giggles like, oh, don't worry. I have people that can protect me. We've already been through all this. We're fine. And then Inurashi's just like, I see. Okay. Let's see here. Something else is that over the time skip, she got sent to Tequila Wolf, which is an island in the East Blue. Not really an island, it's actually a bridge that connects these two islands together that's just being constantly constructed over the course of hundreds of years, essentially by slave labor. While on that island, she got thrown in captivity and locked into a tower. I would make a joke here about how even in her prison outfit, Robin likes to reveal her cleavage, but then you start thinking that it was probably about the sick, demented old men that live on a snowy bridge all year that probably made her dress like that, so that just got a little bit of rapey, kind of dark. But it has a happy ending, though. Robin got liberated by the revolutionaries, got taken to Baltigo by them, where she met Luffy's father Dragon and Sabo and Koala, where she formed a kind of relationship with them, which we don't really know much about because it really hasn't been expanded upon. Like I said, Robin doesn't really talk about anything like that to the crew, but she certainly knows a lot more about the revolutionaries than she's explained so far, and she probably knows some secrets that have just never, like, either they told her not to bring up or that she just never had the opportunity to. Robin knows a lot more than she's letting on right now. So with that being the case, I think we covered everything on Robin's character there. I wanted to cover anyway. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed Robin. Who's next? It is... Oh, I know. It's Chopper. Yes, Chopper is next in the video series. So catch you back here next time where we'll be discussing the Straw Hats Doctor, Tony Chopper. See you back here next time, guys. Tekking signing out.